Jim's here. Good morning. Welcome to L&O. Everyone can take their seat. Overflow room is 149 with extra seating if anybody wants to go in there and view the meeting. I ask you to please silence your cell phones. If you're interested in testifying, please use the sign-in sheet located in the back of the room by the door. Testimony is going to be with the chair's discretion based on our time constraints and information that has already been presented. And just as a reminder, no signs are permitted in the committee rooms. And call attendance. Yes. Clerk, please call attendance.
Representative Banta.
Here.
Representative Bratcher.
Here.
Representative Birch. Representative Flannery.
Present, Annex Office.
Thank you. Representative Gentry. Representative Herron. Representative Huff.
Present.
Representative Cook.
Here.
Representative Massey. Representative McCoy.
Here.
Representative Meredith.
He's on his way.
Representative Miller.
In the room.
Representative Moser.
I'm here.
Representative Palumbo.
Here in my annex office.
Okay. Representative Pratt.
Present in the room.
Representative Santoro. Representative Timoney.
Here.
Representative Westrom. Chairman Koenig.
Here in the room.
Okay, good morning. We have a quorum. We're going to start right off with House Bill 606. Representative Koenig, you're already in the chair. Floor is yours. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adam Koenig. We bring to you a familiar bill. This year it's House Bill 606, which is a bill to legalize sports wagering in Kentucky. As longtime members of this committee know, we've passed it out of this committee a few times in the past. I think we're in position, hopefully, to have better luck going forward out of this committee. But what this essentially does is, as you've seen, is allow for wagering on sports, as happens in 33 other states and the District of Columbia today.
Motion on sub.
There is no sub.
Oh, there's no, sorry. All right. Woo.
And we send the money to the pensions. But I can keep talking, or
Okay, we have a motion on the bill in a second, but before we go to that, we have a few people signed up to speak. Okay. So I would invite them to come forward at this time. This is on 606, Gene Cole and David Walls. Gentlemen, welcome. Please introduce yourself for the record, and you may begin.
David Walls with the Family Foundation.
Gene Cole with the Kentucky League on Alcohol, Gambling Problems, and Substance Use Disorders.
Floor is yours.
I'll go ahead. Well, good morning, Chairman and Vice Chair and members of the committee. Again, David Walls, Executive Director of the Family Foundation, a nonprofit organization that stands for Kentucky families and the biblical values that make them strong. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning and express our concerns on an important issue. The Family Foundation's opposition to the expansion of gambling is well known to this committee and its members, but an issue of this magnitude and importance requires that I briefly lay out once again some of our concerns. Predatory gambling, especially in the expansive form that is being considered this morning in House Bill 606, is not a victimless form of entertainment or competition. That's simply the truth, and it's a harsh reality. This type of predatory gambling is designed to prey on human weakness, with the government colluding with the gambling industry to exploit our fellow Kentuckians. It is an industry designed not to create wealth, but to simply transfer wealth, primarily from the poor to the wealthy. Government-promoted and privileged gambling, including sports wagering, will only further impoverish Kentucky's poor by taking money from families and shifting it to the gambling industry. The fact that this committee is also considering other bills, including 609, which would establish a fund with millions of dollars to help deal with the problems caused by gambling, is further evidence that even advocates for the expansion of gambling understand that there will be victims and destruction to families and communities across our Commonwealth. More broken families, increased divorce, and untold additional social costs. I would urge members of this committee and the General Assembly to just consider a few additional questions and thoughts. Is the expansion of predatory gambling really good in a time when addictions of all kinds are on the rise? Is this truly public policy for the good of Kentuckians? Is the expansion of predatory gambling good policy when there's rising inflation, rising gas prices, and other costs that are making family budgets tighter than ever? If House Bill 606 is enacted, there will be more victims, more families who can't make ends meet, more lives impacted. And if a multi-million-dollar fund and government program are needed to attempt to undo just some of the harms of this bill and others, wouldn't Kentuckians be better off without it? And finally, is it prudent to jump right back into another divisive fight on gambling just a year after historical horse racing slot machines were passed through this body, when the dust has not settled yet, the impact not fully known of what that expansion would do in our state? One of the main purposes of government is to seek the welfare of its citizens, not to exploit those who are vulnerable. Government-sponsored expansion of gambling, by its nature, is bad government and bad policy. I would urge you and your fellow members of the General Assembly to oppose the expansion of predatory gambling and the harm that it would cause Kentucky families. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cole, you have anything to add to that?
I just want to echo, I agree with everything Mr. Wallace said. And in addressing House Bill 609, the problem gambling fund, how much of a authority would the board have?
Let's keep it that we're on 606 right now, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, 606, one of the things I always hear is Kentucky is not first on doing different things. Like people say when it comes to this issue. How come we weren't the first ones to do it? Well, why can't Kentucky take a different tune and say, we're going to be the first to stand up and say no to issues like this, instead of following the crowd? And as he was speaking about the historical horse racing, there's venues that are in the process of being approved or in the process of being built. And I know of one facility.
So let's keep it to 606 here.
Well, things were presented as a business opportunity. It would be something good for the city. And as we all know, with gambling, it never turns out good. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you all very much. Representative Caney, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, if I could, just a couple things. First of all, it was mentioned about taking care of families and that being the job of government. I ran for office to make Kentucky more business friendly and to get government out of our lives, not put more government into our lives. Second of all, you hear about on many of these bills, the parade of horribles that will occur if passed. And, I think most of the time, if not all the time, those parade of horribles never show up. There is no question that there are costs, and we'll talk about that when we get to 609, but those costs exist now. There's billions being wagered currently legally in the state on various forms of gaming. There are, according to the American Gaming Association, there's $2 billion wagered illegally on sports in Kentucky every year. And I think it's important to bring those people out of the shadows to dry up the black market and make sure that the people of this state have the benefits of their government protecting them. When you go to a bookie, and if you have a good weekend and you go to collect and your bookie doesn't want to pay you, where do you go? What recourse do you have? The answer is none. If that's the case, if and when we legalize it, that won't be the case. You'll have a government who will intervene on your behalf and make sure that things are being taken care of properly. And I can go on, but lastly, I want to acknowledge my co-sponsor for 4 years on this bill, Representative Gentry, who's been a good partner with me on this topic. So,
Thank you. We have a motion by Representative Huff. We have a second by Representative Pratt. Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Banta.
Yes.
Representative Bratcher.
Yes.
Representative Birch. Representative Flannery.
Aye.
Representative Gentry.
Explanation of vote, please.
Yes, sir.
I'm voting yes today, and that's no surprise to anybody out here. But I think we have the ability to make the decisions for ourselves. People that bet on sports, for the most part, are already doing it. And the worst thing about it is when you bet on credit, and that's illegal betting. And we are going to regulate that, and we're going to end that. And we're going to do what majority of states in the United States already have, which is legalized, tight regulated sports wagering. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Herron.
Yes.
Representative Huff.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Representative Massey.
Yes.
Representative McCoy.
Yes.
Representative Meredith. Representative Miller.
Yes, explain my vote.
Yes, sir.
I consistently poll my constituents on this issue, and consistently 73% of my constituents want this bill passed. Thank you.
Representative Moser.
Yes.
Representative Palumbo.
Yes.
Representative Pratt.
Yes.
Representative Santoro. Representative Timoney. Representative Westrom.
Yes.
Chairman Koenig.
yes.
Motion carries. The message shall be reported to the floor as same. Okay, let's move on to House Bill 607. Representative
All right.
Koenig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to see if I can follow the instructions I was given on sharing the screen here.
Would you like let's go ahead and do the motion on the committee sub.
Yes, we do have a committee sub.
We have a motion by Representative Timoney. Is there a second? Second by Representative McCoy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Committee sub's now on the table.
All right, thank you. I, as if I know what I'm doing, created a PowerPoint for today's pari-mutuel modernization. And first of all, I want to acknowledge, again, Representative Gentry and Representative Cook, who were on the pari-mutuel modernization task force that took place over the summer, and this bill is the result of that task force, co-chaired by Senator Thayer, and we had 5 really good meetings. I appreciate leadership offering us the opportunity on both sides to take a deep dive into the pari-mutuel system. There's a lot of arcane old rules that we're going to update, and obviously its genesis came from a desire to increase general fund monies from historical horse racing. So we're going to do it, but in not exactly the direct way that was anticipated. So this is kind of the simple breakdown of what House Bill 607 does. So we're going to tax every parimutuel wager at 1.5%. Currently, if you wager on a app on your phone, such as Twin Spires, it is taxed at 0.5%. So we are increasing that rate from 0.5 to 1.5. If you wager on live races or on an HHR machine, those are taxed at 1.5%, and we're going to keep those the same. And if you wager on track at a window or a machine, a simulcast race, so at a track somewhere else, it's currently taxed at 3%. We're going to lower that to 1.5%. So every parimutuel wager will be 1.5%. I'm sure those rates made sense when they were created. I was here, a few of us were here when we set up the ADW, Advanced Deposit Wagering, and that was done largely by Representative Gentry's predecessor, Representative Clark. And it was a fledgling industry then. Well, it's not a fledgling industry now. That's where I think a majority of the bets are made. We changed the distribution of live and HHR taxes to direct more money to the general fund, and I think I've got a slide that gets into that in a little bit. We send money to University of Kentucky and BCTCS equine industry programs. We currently send money to the Louisville program, and we add those two programs because they're currently doing the work and they're not getting direct funding. There's an admissions tax, which we don't know how old it is, probably 100 years old, for 15 cents for every person that comes to a track. That's back in the day when that was the only place where you could legally wager in Kentucky. And so you got tickets and you showed up and there were turnstiles. And that may make sense for a couple tracks, but at Turfway, I've never gone through a turnstile at Turfway, and I don't think they're going to have them in the new facility. Same with Kentucky Downs, same with Ellis Park, same with Red Mile. So they've been just kind of estimating how many people come in, and then they send the state money. I think in 2020 fiscal year, it was $150,000. So it's not a lot of money. We're going to eliminate that. Includes language to require that the Racing Commission be self-funding. We've been spending money for years on their funding, and they're going to. We have enough of the HHR machines now that they can put a fee on there, and they can be self-sufficient. Requires operators to maintain a self-exclusion list and share that list with the Racing Commission for other operators to use. So what is that? That is, you're someone, you've been going, you know, maybe you have a problem, maybe you just want to take a week or two off, and you say, don't let me in here for a week, don't let me in here for a month, don't let me in here for a year, whatever it may be. This is, I'd say, common, if not standard practice with casinos across the country. And it's not something that's done here in Kentucky, and we're going to require that be done. We also are going to require that they share the list with the Racing Commission so that other tracks have access to it, and they can also make sure that if you go to Red Mile and say, don't let me in, and you find yourself in Louisville and you get the itch, that hopefully they will have that list and they will keep you from going in there in Louisville as well. It eliminates breakage, which we will get to, but it's a very exciting issue, and it allows thoroughbred development funds to be used for claiming races. Currently, we hear about all the great purses in Kentucky and what has the improvements that HHR has brought to them, but those are only for the top level races. This will take off the restriction on using that money for claiming races, and every race in Kentucky will have the opportunity to have enhanced purses for Kentucky breds, which will be very exciting and will continue to improve our racing product. So how are we going to get more money for the general fund in House Bill 607? This is a slide from the Parimutuel Task Force from day one, and I put a couple arrows on there to point out where we're going to get the additional funding from. You can see on there that the tax is 1.5%, and there's consternation that we're not getting enough money to the general fund. And you can see that there's additional monies that go to other funds, and that only 0.35% is absolutely dedicated to the general fund. Now we get more than that because some of those lower ones, the Equine Industry Fund, the Higher Education Fund, the Equine Drug Testing Fund, are all capped. But the largest part, half of that, goes into these development funds. So what we're going to do is we cap the monies for the Thoroughbred Development Fund at $40 million. And when I shouldn't say cap at, but when the Thoroughbred Development Fund hits $40 million in a year, and last year it hit 38 something, and the Standardbred Development Fund gets to 20 million, and I think last year was 11 million. The rate that where you fill up those funds will go down, okay, by more than half. We'll still put more money into them, but instead we will take, in the case of the Thoroughbred Development Fund, 0.4%, and in the case of the Standardbred Development Fund, 0.65%, and that money will start going to the general fund instead of those development funds. So we believe that in 2 or 3 years, when the historical horse racing facilities are more mature, we're looking at $20 million additional in the general fund. The increase in the ADW tax from 0.5% to 1.5% will immediately generate $4 million a year. And as I've mentioned, that's the growth area, so that will continue to go up over time. And requiring the Racing Commission to be self-sustaining will save the state budget about $3 million a year. So in a couple of years, we're looking at a $27 million increase, probably at minimum. This $27 million, and the money I discussed in the last slide, is on top of the additional monies that are being generated, that even if we do nothing, those monies have gone up, as you can see on this slide, quite a bit. 2021 was $41 million, which was more than the previous 2 years combined. This year, the estimate is I put down 62. It's actually 62.7 million. It may come in a little less than that, may come in a little bit more, but as you can see, there's growth, and it will continue to grow to maturity in the next, as I mentioned, 2 or 3 years. So the money is coming in from the industry, and I think I've found some creative ways of generating additional money without hurting the product. And let me just say, I know there was a lot of discussion on the floor last year about raising the HHR tax. And Representative Cook and I stood up on the floor and we promised that we would look into it, and we did. We had the folks that shared the concern, the Kentucky Policy Center, as well as the tracks, come and talk about what is and is not a fair rate. And you know, these historical horse racing machines are unique in that we tax them 1.5% gross, whereas when you have casinos and slot machines, they typically tax it on their profits. So it's hard to make an apples to apples comparison. They both had their different opinions. I just want to point out that when I asked, and I had to work very hard to make sure that the Kentucky Policy Center got to come and speak with my co-chair, and when they did, and they said it wasn't high enough, I asked them what a proper rate would be, and they did not have an answer. And I've yet to receive one since then, and that was, I think, in the August meeting. So I think that indicates that it's in a good place. And so I just want to make sure everybody knows that we gave them the opportunity. We talked about it and didn't get a recommendation. Lastly, what is breakage? I think everyone here has probably been to the track once or twice. I stole this from the internet from the Justify year. Did you ever notice that when you make a win, place, or show bet, it's always, your payout's always in increments of 20 cents? That's because by law they are permitted to round down to the nearest 20 cents. Again, that's something from 100 plus years ago, when that was the only place to bet legally. There was tens of thousands of people every day they ran at a track. Lines were deep, easier to pay out that way, and my guess is it was actually, there weren't computers figuring out and a tote system figuring out what the odds were in real time. There's people probably behind the scenes counting up money, trying to figure out what the payout would be, how much was placed on every horse. But it's just something that's never been changed. It's my view that is the bettor's money, and I've been very interested after last year's HHR debate in making sure the bettors are taken care of. We took care of everyone else. We took care of the breeders. We took care of the tracks. The horse owners, the trainers, the jockeys. Everyone's getting healthy on this except for the bettors. And this is how we're going to help the bettors, is they're going to get paid to the penny rather than every 20 cents. And it will, in addition to taking care of the bettors, it will make Kentucky the place in North America to wager. If you're someone who wagers a lot of money, do it for a living, do it for entertainment, whatever it is, why would you bet any place else? Why would you bet someplace when you're going to get paid $7.80 when you could get paid $7.96? And our resident experts here, Pat Cummings in the audience, if anybody wants to ask questions about it. But when it is especially noticeable when you have like a big favorite who's paying $2.80 to win. You're getting 80 cents back on your $2, but if you should have gotten $2.90 something, well, all of a sudden the takeout goes way, way up, and your percentage of your win is seriously hit with that. So, thank you. Let me show you my last slide.
And we do have a question. We do have a motion and a second, but first let's go to Representative Bratcher for a question.
The $62 million in 2022. Can you break that down? That's estimated $62 million to the general fund. If you go back like 3 slides, I think.
from live and HHR.
Total.
If
this bill passes.
No, if it doesn't pass.
That's what it would be.
Yes, if it does pass, we're going to get even more than that.
Now that's on profit or gross revenue, or I can't remember.
That is the 1.5% is a gross tax. So for every dollar wagered, 1.5 cents. Now, that 62 is what is, I mean, that 1.5 you can see goes 0.75 to the development fund and 0.2 to equine industry program and stuff. So that's not the whole 1.5%. It's a small sliver of it, which is why we're capping and saying once you hit this, then we're going to start sending more of it to the general fund.
So the 62 is after all the others have been filled up.
Correct. Exactly.
Thanks.
Representative Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I ask a question, I'd like to make a complimentary statement, first of all, of the hard work of yourself and task force. And there's something that you didn't mention I think is really, really important in this bill. And a lot of our tax revenues go to the Kentucky Thoroughbred Racing Fund, actually a Standardbred Racing Fund as well, which is very, very vitally important to the breeding industry and the racing industry here in the state. And what those funds are used for are purse supplements for Kentucky bred thoroughbreds and standardbreds that race, which attracts a lot more breeding, attracts a lot more participation in our racing circuit here in the state of Kentucky. But the claiming races, which are the lowest level races, which actually comprise most of the everyday racing that goes on in the state, and a lot of our, I would say, lower income operations are in this type of racing. And before, the claiming races were not eligible for purse supplements. This bill will, since we now have the funding within the fund to do this, we are adding claiming races to those purse supplements for Kentucky breds, and this is very, very important. And I think it's one of the big pieces of the bill, and I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
Now to get to my question. Sorry about that. In committee, we heard testimony from the University of Louisville, which runs our equine industry program. It's one of the programs that gets funded. Back in the 1980s, this program was created, and it survives and is fully funded by tax revenues that come from pari-mutuel wagering. And most of the pari-mutuel wagering revenues today, over 80%, come from HHR. Now, this particular organization is the only business school accredited equine program in the country. It has been extremely successful for over 30 years. We produce a lot of high-paying jobs in this industry through this program. And what has happened with revenues going through the roof in HHR, the revenues that go to the equine industry program are capped out of HHR because they also get revenues out of two other pari-mutuel platforms, one simulcasting, one live racing. In both of those platforms, live racing and simulcasting has been declining in recent years. We're going to higher technology, to ADW, which is betting on your phone and betting on your computer, internet wagering. The University of Louisville Equine Program gets no money from that. So what is happening is their HHR funds are capped, and their simulcasting and live racing funds are declining. So even though we are exploding in revenues because of all the growth in HHR, the University of Louisville Equine Program's revenues are going down for 5 years in a row. And the sponsor has been nice enough to talk to me about addressing that issue. And I hope those talks continue as we go to the floor. I totally support this bill, but I think we need to do something about that and stop that declining trend, because this is a very successful program, and now they're looking at possible cuts moving forward, and we need to stop that because the money's there. And I've just asked the question, would you be willing to continue to talk about this situation?
Of course.
Thank you.
Representative Herron.
Thank you, Chair. My question is very similar to Representative Gentry. I'm not as familiar, but I did notice that the University of Kentucky and BCTCS would be getting funds, and so I was curious what other colleges or universities have some type of equine program, and are those programs will they be funded, or which ones are already being funded?
Currently, only the University of Louisville one is funded. Obviously, we're directing monies from HHR to those two specific ones, the UK and BCTCS. They've been funding them themselves, but obviously it's a workforce issue. Everyone's having it, and I think it's a good idea to go forward. If there are others, I'm not aware of them. They probably exist, and I'm happy to listen to folks in the interim, and if there's more that want to come and make the ask and show their worth, we're happy to consider that, certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Representative McCoy. We have a second by Representative Meredith. Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Banta.
Yes.
Representative Bratcher.
Yes.
Representative Birch. Representative Flannery.
Yes.
Representative Gentry.
Yes.
Representative Herron.
Yes.
Representative Huff.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Representative Massey.
Yes.
Representative McCoy.
Yes.
Representative Meredith. Representative Miller.
Yes.
Representative Moser.
Yes.
Representative Palumbo.
Yes.
Representative Pratt.
Yes.
Representative Santoro. Representative Timoney.
Yes.
Representative Westrom.
Yes.
Chairman Koenig.
Yes.
Motion carries. Just as a reminder, we do have an overflow room in room 149. Okay, now we're going to go a little out of order. While Representative Koenig's at the table, we're going to go to House Bill 609. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, in 2011, the first Beshear administration, we'll call it, sued what was then called PokerStars for illegal online gaming. And fast forward to 2021, 10 years later, a settlement was reached that at $300 million, $225 million of which was deposited into the general fund of Kentucky. In our discussions about pari-mutuel wagering and expanded gaming in general, and some conferences I've been to, I realized that awareness, prevention, and treatment of gaming is an important issue that needs to be addressed, and Kentucky does not address it. There's no requirements in any way, shape, or form for any of the operators to engage in this. I saw this as an opportunity, and Mr. Stone from Kentucky Council on Problem Gaming actually gave us this idea, which was what better use of this money than to address our problem gaming and responsible gaming issues. When you consider that for pari-mutuel wagering, $6 billion last year in Kentucky, the lottery I think is at $1.5 billion. Mary, is that right? All right. How about that? We know that people go across our borders to wager on sports, go to casinos, etc. Charitable gaming, the number I don't even have how much that is, and that we do nothing is not acceptable. This is a big ask of a fair amount of money, but if this passes in its current form, and if managed properly, it should take care of Kentucky's needs in this regard, maybe in perpetuity. If not, it will be hundreds of years. None of us will be here. None of us will get credit for next time it needs to be refilled for it. I mean, maybe Representative Birch would still be here, but I don't think the rest of us will be. but I think it was a great idea to use these funds in this regard, and would happy to answer any questions.
Motion on the bill.
I did. Thank you. I do want to just say that I made sure that there was an appointee from both the House and the Senate, so that it provides some level of legislative oversight, and certainly they have to provide reports to committees. And as long as I get to be chairman of this committee, we'll be hearing from them on a regular basis to see how their progress is going. So.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second, but before we do, Mr. Cole, you signed up to speak on this, sir. If you want to come forward, if you have anything new to add to the conversation. Did you second it?
Again, thank y'all. My name is Gene Cole with the Kentucky League on Alcohol, Gambling Problems, and Substance Use Disorders. On this bill, amazingly, we do support it, which is kind of out of the norm for us, but we do agree the state should help provide support for problem gaming and being able to identify it and render assistance to people before they reach a point of bankruptcy, and maybe even, as I hear from across the ocean from England, of people committing suicide because they've gotten so deep into gambling debts. That's the only way they see their way out of it. So we need this, and the board also needs, I'm not sure how much of a authority the board's going to have, but I'd like to see the board to be able to identify, but then step in before they get to those points. Be able to step in and say, even to the ticket sellers and operators of the games, saying, hey, you're doing too much. We're going to have to remove your license so that you don't get into financial trouble. And then with the players that are actually making the wagers, be able to step in and say, hey, we think based on what we've seen of your income, you're getting in too deep. You need to stop, and we're going to ban you until you get your treatment and everything else. Because as we know, with any addiction, if a person's in addiction, they really don't self-report until they get to the very, very bottom. And a lot of times by then it's too late.
Very well, sir. You're for it. We're for it. We've got a motion from Representative Banta, second from Representative Massey. Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Banta,
Yes.
Representative Bratcher,
Yes.
Representative Birch, Representative Flannery,
Yes.
Representative Gentry.
Swing my vote, please.
Yes, sir.
Everybody knows here I'm a big advocate for gaming in Kentucky. I also acknowledge the problem with a small percentage of those who participate in addicted gambling. It is a real problem. This bill fixes the most glaring weakness in our state, that we do not set aside, have not set aside funds for Kentucky Problem Gaming to give those individuals the services they need. So my yes vote today is for Kentucky Problem Gambling. Thank you.
Representative Herron,
Yes.
Representative Huff,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Representative Massey,
Yes.
Representative McCoy,
Yes.
Representative Meredith, Representative Miller, Representative Moser,
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Palumbo,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Santoro, Representative Timoney,
Yes.
Representative Westrom, Chairman Koenig.
Motion carries. Mr. Chairman, you want your seat back?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know where you want me to pop in, but I have a committee sub to this bill.
We will allow the presenters to present, and then when that is over and time comes for questions, etc., we can. That'll be the proper time.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Representative Timoney, welcome. Please have your guests introduce themselves, turn on their microphones, and proceed.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee, for bringing this important piece of legislation before you today. Back during the interim, the Joint Committee for Licensing Occupations met to discuss gray machines that have infiltrated every county and community in Kentucky. It was the result of that meeting and the tone of that meeting that provided the genesis for this bill. Before we get to the specifics of the bill, I would like to allow my guests an opportunity to introduce themselves.
I'm Mary Harville, President and CEO of the Kentucky Lottery.
Good morning. My name is Madge Vale. I'm Vice President for Lancaster Bingo Company.
Thank you. Thank you, too, for joining me today. I would like to explain what the bill does briefly, and then allow my guests the opportunity to explain why, according to their perspective, why the bill is necessary. In summary, the bill does three things. It bans, prohibits gambling devices, gaming that fall out of the purview of KRS statutes 154, 230, and 238. Those of you who don't have those memorized, that's charitable gaming, lottery, and the horse racing. Second thing it does is it authorizes the Kentucky State Police to establish a task force dedicated to removing gambling devices not authorized by law. And the last thing it does is it directs the Justice and Public Safety Cabinet to promulgate regulations regarding the task force. At this time, I would like the opportunity for the lottery to explain why this bill is necessary.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be here today, Representative Timoney. First, I'd like to be clear that the Kentucky Lottery does support House Bill 608 because there is so much at stake for us here. What is exactly at stake for the Kentucky Lottery and the Commonwealth?
Mary, can you bring your microphone closer to you? Thank you.
What exactly is at stake for the Kentucky Lottery and the Commonwealth? Because we're one and the same, right? We are not a for-profit private enterprise. The Kentucky Lottery was created by the General Assembly to fund college scholarships for Kentucky college students. And last fiscal year, we sent you over $354 million for this purpose. Kentucky families depend on us to fund an extensive list of merit-based and need-based college scholarships, including the popular KEYS Scholarship Program. And we've provided over $4 billion to scholarships to date. You should have recently received our annual letter. This is an example of one of those letters that sets out the lottery funds that are used in your district. And that is funds used by both of your college students and the universities in your district that ultimately receive these funds. We are on track to meet the expectations for this year, and that's the good news. But there will be an entirely different story next year if nothing is done to stop the proliferation of the unregulated gaming machines. Since I was here in November testifying before you, it's only 4 months ago, gray machines have increased 42% in lottery retail locations all across our state. And now we have 1,504 machines in 397 lottery retailers in 72 counties, and far more of the machines in other types of establishments like bars and social establishments. So what is the impact of all these machines on the Kentucky Lottery? It's early, but it is significant, and it's because of where the machines are located. We face competition from all forms of gambling, legal and illegal, but these machines have landed right in lottery locations, which is convenience stores and gas stations. Gray machines target those very same locations, and that is why unregulated gaming machines are a massive body blow to the Kentucky Lottery. But let's look at the numbers. At the end of quarter two, we looked at our statewide lottery sales. stores with the gray machines are lagging behind the others, about 5.5%. But let's look a little closely at accounting. We're looking at Laurel County in particular because Laurel County is number one in the state as far as concentration of these machines, with 193 gray machines. That's one machine for every 316 people in Laurel County. And that's more machines, or almost as many machines as we have in Jefferson County now. The year-to-date sales for FY22 compared to the year-to-date sales in FY21, sales are flat in Laurel County. Do the same comparison with the entire state, and sales are up 6.4%. Estimated lost sales year-to-date in Laurel is over $400,000. Estimated lost annual sales that we're going to have in Laurel County, over $800,000. If we apply these estimated lost annual sales to the entire state, using our population of 4.5 million, we will stand to lose almost $60 million annually in lottery sales if the gray machines proliferate all across the state as they have done in Laurel County. If nothing is done to stop the gray machines, it is a green light for the gray machines, and then what happens? We don't need a crystal ball to find out. Only look to some of the other states that have had this happen. Pennsylvania is one of them. The numbers of machines in Pennsylvania have exploded. Pace-O-Matic said 2015 they had only 322 machines, but by 2019 they had 15,500 machines. And it has announced plans to have over 40,000 machines in Pennsylvania by 2023. And they are only one of 9 manufacturers of these machines in Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania Lottery had a study done that estimates over $500 million in lottery revenues have been lost over the last 4-year period. But let's bring the focus back home. Our number one sales representative in the state of Kentucky last year is Mr. Michael Hayden out of Owensboro. Now Mr. Hayden is dead last in the Western region. In September, here's Michael's story. Only 3 of his retailers had gray machines. But in November, the Daviess County district attorney, said that he would not pursue legal action against the machines. And now, since January, the number of machines in that area has skyrocketed. 38 retailers with 107 machines and more at non-lottery location. At Michael's top Keno retailer, Keno sales are down 80% from last year, and scratch-off sales are down 27% from last year. At one location, Michael's retailer's making $4,000 a month on the gray machines, and those sales are climbing, but lottery sales have declined 36% since getting machines. The retailer explained he is making a much higher profit on the machines because he doesn't have to claim his taxes. He keeps approximately 40% of the gross profit. And a similar story is playing out for us all across the state. We have had retailers move our equipment over to make room for the gray machines. We have had retailers tell us, take out this lottery entirely. We need it to make room for the gray machines. We've had retailers say, we don't want the gray machines, but we have to have them in order to compete with the store down the street. And we have had our retailers tell us, please do not make us choose between these machines and the lottery, because we will have to choose these machines. Why is that? Because the machines make more money and there are no rules to follow. One gray machine manufacturer recently said to the Courier-Journal, we are policing ourselves. So how is that working? And where is the integrity? What is the age limit? Is it 18 or 21? Because we've seen both on those machines. If they are true skill games, why is there a need for age control? What's the payout? What's the process for player complaints? Where are the rules for the games and how are the machines operated? Where are the responsible gaming materials? These are all matters of integrity that the players take for granted with the Kentucky Lottery and the other forms of legal and authorized gaming in Kentucky, but that's not the case for unregulated gaming machines. And legal gaming cannot compete with that. We've heard from the gray machine manufacturers, just tax and regulate us. But that is not the way to implement expanded gaming. These machines came in the dead of the night and they set up shop, and rewarding this bad behavior is not the answer to the problem that they have created. If you throw a party, you normally want to be the one to determine the guest list rather than cater to your crashers. Expanded gaming should be done from the top down instead of the bottom up, where we have to cobble together a patchwork quilt of inconsistencies and irregularity. It's not the way to implement expanded gaming. So in conclusion, it is absolutely up to you, the General Assembly, to decide what kind of expanded gaming that we will have in the Commonwealth. But you have to know that if you don't take action, you give the gray machines the green light, and Kentucky families and Kentucky colleges will not be able to count on the same level of lottery-funded scholarships that they have come to expect. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Madge Vale. I serve as Vice President of Compliance and Regulatory Affairs for Lancaster Bingo Company. Lancaster Bingo Company is a licensed supplier of charitable gaming products here in Kentucky and also in 7 other states. And we've been here in Kentucky since 1994. We work directly with several thousand charities throughout our market, and approximately 600 here in Kentucky who are licensed to conduct bingo and charitable gaming. And we provide the regulated products for use in these fundraising activities. My company, Lancaster Bingo, is headquartered in Lancaster, Ohio. We have a warehouse and warehouse staff here in Louisville and sales reps located throughout the Commonwealth. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 608 and the clarification it brings that skill gaming in Kentucky is not legal. I would just want to make 3 main points. First off, if the General Assembly fails to act on this issue, charitable gaming revenues will be significantly and severely impacted. And just to give you an example of what you might expect, Ohio faced the same issue in the early 2000s. At that time, gross receipts for charitable gaming were over $1 billion, peaking at $1.4 billion in 2005. During these next several years, the skill gaming industry placed their devices throughout Ohio, targeting successful charitable gaming sites such as veteran and fraternal halls, and also popular and successful traditional bingo halls. The industry would open storefronts near these locations, hoping to attract the same players that were stopping by to play bingo or play pull tabs at their local fraternal or veteran club. By 2015, 10 years later, there were thousands of devices and millions of dollars in cash changing hands every day. In 2015, the Ohio General Assembly acted and moved the industry under the umbrella of the Casino Control Commission. That required new regulations, game certifications, background checks, and enforcement of the prize limits that were already in place. As a result, the skill gaming industry eventually moved out of Ohio, but it did so not without leaving a mark on charitable gaming, as gross receipts at this time had dropped to less than $700 million, more than half of what they were 10 years earlier. Sorry. To give you some comparison, charitable gaming gross revenues in Kentucky in 2019, skipping 2020 due to the pandemic, and also 2021 is not yet published yet. These receipts in Kentucky were over $489 million. Should Kentucky experience similar decreases in charitable gaming revenues as Ohio, it would mean a reduction of over $200 million, and will put at risk those dollars currently used to support charitable causes like veterans clubs, fraternal halls, high school booster clubs, humane societies, churches, volunteer fire departments, to name a few of the types of organizations and community needs served as a result of charitable gaming. Secondly, skill gaming creates financial incentives for Kentucky's charitable organizations, but without any oversight. With the introduction of skill gaming, licensed charitable organizations are being asked to consider placement of these devices in their locations. We know this is happening, and it is very attractive to the charitable licensee, unlike what they are required to do as a charitable gaming licensee. If they decide to use skill gaming as their no license to obtain, no fees to be paid on their gross receipts from gaming, which is typically thousands of dollars, no reports to maintain and submit quarterly, no audits or inspections to deal with, and no requirement that the proceeds be used for a charitable purpose. It is clear that placing these machines in their location creates the potential for charities to have access to significant dollars, and it is easier, at least in the short run, for charitable organizations. No one's stopping in to conduct an audit, no one's requiring training for their volunteer operators, no one is certifying the games as being compliant to any standards, no one is making sure they do not look nor operate like a slot machine, and so on. Third, and finally, charitable organizations utilizing skill gaming devices face new risks to their tax-exempt status, their liquor license, and to the general public protection of those involved. Charitable gaming has always been considered a privilege, a way of raising money by a limited number of organizations by virtue of state rules and IRS limitations. Charitable gaming and gambling as a whole, when conducted lawfully, is a complicated endeavor. It's a cash industry, and as a result, it lends itself to increased levels of criminal activity. As a result, and as a way to help reduce these risks and provide sound public policy and protections, there are many additional hurdles around regulated gaming. One of these in the charitable gaming arena has to do with the tax-exempt status of a charitable organization. If that organization has unrelated business income, such as skill gaming revenue, it would be required to report and be taxed on those dollars. If that organization does not do this, the IRS may penalize and eventually revoke their tax-exempt status. Further, the IRS requires reporting on prizes paid in excess of certain amounts, and if this is not followed, the IRS may also take punitive action. In addition, if the organization holds a liquor license, Kentucky revised statutes state that setting up, operating, keeping a gambling game, device, or machine on an ABC licensed premise is grounds for revocation of that alcoholic beverage license. This issue has not been vetted and puts charitable organizations conducting skill games at risk of losing their liquor license. Again, public policy protects against the expansion of unregulated gambling by restricting other privileges to those who are not in compliance. Lastly, if charities opt to not participate in skill games and continue their participation in legal charitable gaming, they could still see declines in charitable gaming receipts. And if charitable gaming receipts decline, so do donations to charitable causes and communities throughout Kentucky. So do fees to maintain the Department of Charitable Gaming, and so does the oversight of gambling in Kentucky and the public protection of organizations and individuals involved in providing and playing these types of games. We urge your support on passage of House Bill 608. It protects the viability of charitable gaming and its charitable licensees and sustains the good works allowed by this regulated activity in communities throughout Kentucky. Thank you again for your time to speak in support of House Bill 608.
Mr. Chairman and committee, after hearing the expert testimony from both of my guests today, I think it's beyond discussion that we need to proceed cautiously with anything that's outside of what we currently are already regulating. Mr. Chairman, you asked a very poignant question to a representative of a gaming company during the interim. You asked about what their end objective was. Their answer was to be legislated into law. And then you followed with, well, why didn't you start there? And I think that's very, very important because, Mr. Chairman, we are starting there with this. We are asking for this bill for all the charitable gaming companies who we had to provide temporary statute relief last year due to the pandemic. Charitable gaming organizations that stretch the four corners of the Commonwealth, Whitley County Touchdown Club, the Liberty Nature and Raptor Center, the Owensboro Eagles, the Villa Hills Civic Club, Shirley's Way in Louisville, they all came to testify to talk about how difficult it was. We had to provide them relief. As a former teacher, I know the impact of key scholarships and work-ready scholarships for students who, for many of our students, that is the push, the necessary push for them to jump into college for the first time for their families. We have already established parameters for gaming in Kentucky. We need to send a message that that's what we're doing here. We have a process for how we do this. Our expansion has a process, and we have to follow that process. We're asking, especially for this bill, for the families who don't want gaming machines in environments that are not age controlled or even want them at all. This was not an easy bill to bring forward. Obviously, as you can see, the witnesses there and the visitors we have with us today. This was not easy. However, we must stick to our principles. If you see these gaming machines across the country, they go into communities, they show how profitable they are, and then law has to react. We have to follow the right process with these types of things. In order to do that, 608 is imperative. And with that, I ask for a motion for passage.
Thank you.
Mr.
Hold on.
Motion on the bill.
We have a motion and a second. We will accept questions for this panel. Then we will bring up those in opposition, and that'll be an appropriate moment for your committee sub. Does that sound good?
Sure.
All right. Any questions for this panel? Representative Massey.
Can questions come from the audience?
No.
I just have a brief question. The bill just stated that it bans every game that is not regulated by one of the three listed in the bill. Does this include any games like at Dave & Buster's or state fairs, anything like that?
Current statute protects those groups as far as the monetary reward. Dave & Buster's, the different kids' birthday party locations, those types of things where you receive a voucher in exchange for a product. Those are exempt from this.
And the same thing for state fairs, correct?
Yes.
Any other questions for this group? All right. Thank you all very much. We have signed up to speak in opposition Bob Hellringer, Ryan Straw, Paul Goldine, and Jason Underwood.
Where do you want to go? I'll sit here. All right.
Did you sign up, Mr. Tilley?
Yeah.
Sure. I would ask for your leniency. Yes, sir. It'll be my pleasure.
I think Representative Hellringer is going to speak on the House Committee sub, and we're going to speak on the bill. Former, sorry.
And that's all right.
You want it, Bob, just
Run that
stay
by
there
me
for a
again,
second, and then,
Mr. Underwood.
pardon me, sir?
What did you say?
I believe former Representative Hellringer is going to speak on the House Committee sub, and the three of us are going to speak on the bills that currently stand, 608.
All right. So how about we have you all speak on the bill, as it were, and then we will get to Mr. Hellringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the introduction. I guess I could like to introduce myself and what I'm going to talk about. I do want to address. I'm sorry.
Can we have those to speak to the bill itself in opposition first, and then if you're going to talk about the sub, we will take a motion at that point, and then we can discuss the sub. Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Go ahead, Paul.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Koenig, for allowing us to address the committee on behalf of Pace-O-Matic Kentucky, Burning Barrel, our distributor, our operators, and many locations and small businesses that we serve. On behalf of the entire team...
Please introduce yourself for the record.
Sorry?
Introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Paul Goldine, and I serve as the President and Chief Operating Officer of Pace-O-Matic, whose software powers the Burning Barrel software. On behalf of all of us here today, I want to express our strong opposition to House Bill 608 and an attempt to ban skill games. Pace-O-Matic is the leading developer of skill games in the entire nation. I'd like to briefly introduce the other speakers for Pace-O-Matic. We have John Tilley, Jason Underwood, and Dr. Peter Zaleski, who I'm hoping was able to dial in to today's meeting. Also in attendance, we have our compliance officers, Randy Fawns, Chris Harris, our legal counsel, Tim Cresante, our distributor, Kama Reed, one of our main operators, and then a number of operators and locations that you can recognize with their red stickers. In addition to Kentucky, we currently legally operate in multiple states, including Pennsylvania, Kansas, Texas, Missouri, Illinois, and New York. And we are fully regulated and operating in Wyoming, Georgia, and the District of Columbia. We are a software company specializing in skill games. Our business model is disruptive in that it focuses on providing sustainable and supplemental income to small businesses. That's important. That's important because our backbone, the backbone of our nation, is small businesses. So let me point out a couple things. By sustainable, I mean that we focus on legal entry and long-term relationships with our distribution chain and the local and state officials to which we hope to regulate sometime in the future. Supplemental income to us is key because to sign up with Paysomatic, we cannot be your primary source of income. In states where we operate, we're structured to self-police our distribution chain. We execute contracts with a state distributor who is then charged with executing contracts with operators, which are the coin machine operators that usually distribute everything from ATMs to dartboards to jukeboxes. They then contract with locations, and those contracts have very specific rules in them. We employ a compliance team of retired and former police officers to enforce those agreements. As a result of our self-policing and compliance team, we have terminated a number of operators in many different jurisdictions for non-performance. We have also terminated locations for failure to follow our contracts. In most states that we go into, there is no regulation. We have to self-regulate. Although we are legal, we self-regulate our own system to make sure that everyone stays in compliance. We also provide, as part of our compliance team, to law enforcement details of illegal gambling activity in multiple states and help them act upon those. In the states of Virginia, Pennsylvania, and others, you'll find that to be true, and we can hand you the information after this hearing if you'd like to find out. In our structure, this is key, Paysomatic bears the cost of capitals for all of our terminals, and those are distributed through operators. That means that the operators don't pay for the terminals. Locations don't pay for the terminals. Paysomatic provides those terminals on a cost-free basis. In essence, we provide a win-win opportunity for operators and locations. We invest tens of millions of dollars into the states we operate because we provide those terminals. Approximately 80 to 85% of the money generated from our terminals stays in the state where it's generated. So here in Kentucky, that's what we expect to see. 80 to 85% of the money generated stays in the state, either through the location, which gets 40%, or the operator who gets 35%, and Paysomatic's take is 25%. From that 25%, we recoup the cost of capital, and then we pay for our compliance team and our lobbyists and our legal teams and things of that nature. During regular economic times, small businesses expand with our products. In harsh economic times, as we've seen with COVID and the current rise of inflation in the state and in the country, our games are a lifeline for small businesses. Paysomatic prides itself on conducting business the right way and following the law. We will not place our games in a market without getting a legal opinion on our software to determine its legality in a market. That's a lot of investment for us to go in and take a legal risk. Before entering the market, we received a legal opinion regarding current laws from one of the Commonwealth's preeminent gaming experts, Laura Hollabeck from Dinsmore and Scholl. To address how we entered this market, I will now turn to John Tilley, former Secretary of the Kentucky Justice and Public Safety Cabinet and former state representative.
Thank you, Paul, Mr. Chairman, and members of committee. I don't take this assignment lightly, and I'll tell you why. This company has waited. We have waited 4 months to set the record straight. What I mean by that is, 4 months ago, many of you were in that interim joint meeting where you heard the annual report from the Kentucky Lottery. What was supposed to be an annual report that took about 45 minutes became 45 minutes of a full frontal attack on the skill games industry. During that time, several things were said or insinuated. My job is to tell you what actually occurred during the process of this company and others entering the marketplace. And I will tell you, the idea that somehow this company entered the marketplace under the cover of night is simply not true. They first canvassed the market, and what you need to know is when they did that, a criminal justice consulting agency determined that there were 15 to 20,000 illegal games, those gray machines and worse, existing already in the state. That's the reality. And without an enforcement mechanism, those games will remain despite whatever ban bill you may pass. That is a fact. The legal opinion stands by itself and is credible, and many of you have read that legal opinion. I also don't take this assignment lightly because I was the plaintiff, Mr. Chairman, for 4 years at Justice and prosecuted that case against PokerStars. I do not take this assignment lightly. Our compliance team and our lawyers are spread out all over the state. Some of the best in this state don't take that lightly. I have with me on my right documents that indicate we did not come in under the cover of night. We corresponded with the Department of Charitable Gaming. We corresponded with the Public Protection Cabinet and the ABC. One of our compliance officers is a former deputy commissioner of the ABC. We also had multiple conversations with anyone and everyone we thought would listen to how we want to enter the marketplace, which brings me to the county-by-county opening strategy. Nothing, members, could be more meticulous and accountable and transparent than that strategy, which is for me and others to go and physically meet with county attorneys, many of whom I know and have worked with for 30 years in criminal justice, Commonwealth's attorneys, mayors, county judges, sheriffs, anyone who would listen. And we tell them why these games are legal, and we tell them we're not coming to your community until all your questions are answered. If they have a discomfort with our approach, they tell us, and we do not enter that county. To date, we have been operating for roughly 1 year, and we are in 42 counties. That is not entering this marketplace or infiltrating our communities. And I would remind you that small business, again, those percentages cannot be overstated. Without overhead, without risk to a small business, 40% to that location. 35% to an entrepreneur who can make a living operating these games, and then other monies that can remain in Kentucky by paying the compliance team and a distributor that's based in Lexington. So with that, I have to also address one other inconsistency, because inconsistencies in patchwork has been mentioned today. I have to submit to you, given that the loudest opposition to these skill games has been the lottery, I would have to submit to you some inconsistencies there. So let me take a moment to consider a question you need to ask yourselves. Under what authority is the Kentucky Lottery operating Keno, an online lottery called iLottery? And I'll tell you, our legal team looked at it, and in summary, we don't believe the lottery has any specific authority, and I don't think either you do either, because there's legislative history to this point, to operate Keno or iLottery, which, by the way, once again, bypasses small business. My colleague will touch on just how badly it bypasses small business. And they seem to suggest that they gain whatever authority they have from an OAG opinion from then Attorney General Jack Conway, which granted them that authority. There is nothing else. There was a 2013 bill, which maybe some of you in the room, some of my colleagues, I was here in the House at that time. I voted on that bill to allow Keno sales. Let me tell you, there was no discussion of iLottery. And I think that's key, because of the 9 states, this cannot be overstated either, members, of the 9 states which allow online lottery, Kentucky is the only one that does not have legislative authority for that. The only state. I need you to let that sink in for a minute. So at worst, we believe they are operating illegally. And I cannot say that lightly, and I don't say it lightly. Members and Mr. Chairman, I would urge you to continue asking questions about what is truly a patchwork of legal inconsistency. And with that, I will turn the mic to my colleague, Jason Underwood.
Thanks, John. Mr. Chairman, Jason
One moment.
Underwood.
It's about 9:20. We need to be out of here at 9:45.
You got it. I think I'm 3 to 4 minutes.
Excellent.
Okay.
Maybe 2.
All
right. Ladies and gentlemen, so why are we here and why now? As John said, gray machines have been in the Commonwealth for 15 or 20 years. We estimate there's 15 to 20,000 of them here presently. If you ban skill games, companies like Pace-O-Matic who do things the right way, they'll leave. Those games are not going to leave. Were the lottery's revenues impacted over the last 15 to 20 years by that? You just had the lottery say that there's a study in Pennsylvania where they estimate they're going to lose $500 million over 4 years. Sitting in my chair, grab your phone. I just Googled it. 821, the numbers I saw for the Pennsylvania lottery, record profits. By that estimation, they should have lost $125 million, record profits. We have available by Zoom Dr. Zaleski. He's the former chair of economics at Villanova. Dr. Zaleski initially was not a supporter of this industry. We went to him, and he looked at the lottery's numbers in Pennsylvania. And if you guys want to talk to him, he can answer questions. Everyone loves to talk to an economics professor in the morning. But what he estimated was, not estimated, what he showed was that in locations where the lottery and games of skill are together, the lottery actually does better. And again, the Pennsylvania Lottery has record profits. And Chairman Koenig's counterpart in Pennsylvania, after the lottery testified there, rebuked the lottery for using those numbers. So please take that into consideration when you're considering all this testimony. If we're illegal, why are we even here? Why is the Kentucky State Police picking us up? It's because under Kentucky law, games of skill are legal in Kentucky. We start out as an existential threat, which we are not, and we are happy to provide Dr. Zaleski's testimony and his studies. And this is now about asking permission. As former Representative Tilley pointed out, I think the phrase glass houses comes up when we're talking about asking permission to conduct games in Kentucky. So why regulate us? A member of the Senate said in the Herald Leader about a month ago, when asked what is the difference between HHR, the lottery, and games of skill? And the response was, well, they serve a higher purpose. And I get it. That higher purpose is increased purses, which we support, and the Key Scholarship, which of course we support. And your parimutuel bill is fantastic. I think it's going to add another $27 million to the general fund. Pending legislation in Pennsylvania right now, taxing this industry at 16% would give the general fund there $250 million. Last year in Virginia, Pacematic alone gave the general fund $140 million. We can be a higher purpose as well. We can be another tool in the tool shed. And let's talk about the impact on small business. John touched on it, and Paul touched on it as well, that this company gives 40% of the profits to the operator. The lottery gives 6.5%. Do you want to know why operators don't want to choose between us? Yeah, they do make more money. And what does the lottery do? Well, they bypass their small business partners with iLottery. You know how much money a convenience store gets from iLottery? Zero. You know how much iLottery made last year? $137.1 million. And the small businesses got none of that. That's not the case with these games of skill. I want to talk a little bit about unintended consequences and concerns. Chairman Massey asked about Chuck E. Cheese and the Dave & Buster's and the fairs and carnivals. Respectfully, reading this definition, I don't think that they are protected. And specifically, I'm sorry that Chairwoman Moser left, because when we met with her, we talked about esports, because her intern is at Northern Kentucky University, and they have an esports program. University of Kentucky has built a program around esports, and they're offering $1,000 prizes to students on their esports teams. That's a game of skill. We believe this definition of game of skill would absolutely ban those. There are 178 universities offering esports scholarships currently. Why do we want to lag behind? Why do we want to take that away from us? And then one little point to the end of the bill about who oversees this. So if we were to be allowed to be legal, we'd be overseen by, among others, the lottery. That's like kicking Pepsi out of the state and saying, well, go ask Coke if you can come back in. It makes no sense to give them that authority. And I'm not even sure that's constitutional to cede that authority from the legislature to the lottery. And as we've seen, and I've got a 2013 March 22nd Herald Leader article where it shows what John was talking about, which is there was legislation to approve Keno. The House passed it under former Speaker Stumbo. The Senate did not take it up. Speaker Stumbo said, quote, he's long argued that I think the board has the authority to take the action it did today. And that action was the board itself, the lottery board, gave itself the permission to do these games. Not the General Assembly. The lottery did.
Mr. Underwood, your 3 to 4 minutes is now at 6.
President Cybers says they did not have the authority to do it. So what I would posit is I don't think they have the authority to do this, and I'd be concerned about what they do going forward. So finally, I'll end with a couple of the inconsistencies. HHR was not legal. The legislature made it legal. iLottery was not legal. The lottery itself made it legal. And then some of the quotes that we've seen in the press about this issue is government should stay out of the way. Adults should make their own decisions. And this is about freedom. We agree. And we ask you to vote against House Bill 608.
When I practiced this last night, it was 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
All right.
I ask for your grace.
I appreciate that.
Chairman Koenig, members of the committee, it's good to see everybody this morning. My name is Ryan Straw. I'm the Vice President
and Governmental Affairs Director for the Fraternal Order of Police. I come forward to testify with these gentlemen in opposition of House Bill 608, which makes games of skill illegal in our Commonwealth. The Fraternal Order of Police are proud to partner with East Coast Amusements and Pace-O-Matic as they provide much-needed fundraising opportunities and for our organization. After speaking with many private attorneys, many county and many Commonwealth attorneys, we believe that these machines are legal and allowed to be utilized in our business community. After all, we wouldn't be sitting here today if the machines weren't legal. Not only does the FOP get the much-needed funds to support the law enforcement community and their families, but they also help support small business at a time where main streets in our state and country are struggling. Money from these machines also support many of the initiatives the FOP brings into our communities. Things like our disaster area response team, which answer the call for assistance in Mayfield, Dawson Springs during the Western Kentucky tornadoes. It also sponsors Cops and Kids. The Cops and Kids program is designed to build relationships between local FOP lodges and the community. Officers taking underprivileged kids shopping for Christmas presents or school supplies shows those children that the police in their area are friends and are always there to help. Giving a child a present when they wouldn't have received one or the supplies they need to excel in school can make a lasting impression. The funds from the FOP also sponsor Easter Seals. It's a leading nonprofit provider of services for individuals with autism, developmental, physical, and mental disabilities, and other special needs. Easter Seals services benefit children and adults with disabilities, whether diagnosed at birth or incurred through disease, accidental injury, or the aging process, as well as their families. We also sponsor Special Olympics through our law enforcement torch run. And we also fund partly the National Veterans Crisis Line and Homeless Veterans Outreach Initiative. These are just a few of the things the state FOP helps financially support and can do so because of the fundraising opportunities these companies provide. The FOP is dedicated to partnering with organizations that are absolutely law-abiding. We found it disingenuous to imply that as law enforcement professionals, we would work with companies that do not obey the law. To this end, if this legislature deems these to be unlawful, we will ensure these machines are removed immediately. As we do not believe these are truly gray machines, as they are being called, we support additional regulations and taxes if that's what this body believes is fair. Voting no on House Bill 608 is a yes vote for supporting law enforcement and our veteran service members, along with the small business communities in our Commonwealth. Thank you, Chairman Koenig. Members of the committee, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Couple quick points I'd like to make. One, I appreciate your testimony, Mr. Tilley, Secretary Tilley. Sounds like you talked to everyone but the legislature. Secondly, iLottery, I understand the points there. I see Keno and bars all the time, and it helps those businesses. I know it doesn't help the folks who are sitting here today. And lastly, I don't think it's accurate to state that HHR was not legal. They had an Attorney General's opinion. The legislature set the tax rate for it at one point. And so obviously the legislature took some affirmative action in that regard. It was a ruling about regulations rather than anything else. So that said, Mr. Hellringer, you're going to get your time. I think this would be an appropriate time for Representative Banta to make her motion.
Thank you.
Motion on a sub.
All right, everyone has a sub. It's been gotten around. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glad to be the caboose on this train. I represent Bob Hellringer for the record. I represent proudly the Prominent Technologies Company. We have the Wildcat Skill Games that you may have seen in some establishments around your districts and your counties. I want to say a few words about permission, which you just touched on again, Mr. Chairman. I'm unaware of any other business that has to seek permission from state government to get started. But ironically, we did that. My client sent a letter out to every county attorney in Kentucky before they ever set foot in this state, and said what we were, who we were, what we would like to do to transact business in your county, and if that was a problem for any of those counties, that they could let us know. 2 of them did. They asked us not to come into that county, and we honored those wishes. There was a question when the lottery declared war on us last November about our legality, hence the term gray games. We joined in the lottery's request for an opinion from the Attorney General. When that looked like that wasn't forthcoming, we filed a declaratory rights action in the Franklin Circuit Court. We're asking the court to, we want to demonstrate our game for the court. We feel confident that when that happens, it was supposed to happen last week, but the judge got sick. So it's probably going to be in April. But when we display our games to the court, we feel sure that he will find that and rule that our games are games of skill and hence legal. Obviously, this bill, 608, would put us out of business because we would have to get permission from our competitors to exist, and that's not going to happen. This is the equivalent of Lyft and Uber having to get permission from the Yellow Cab Company to go into business, or FedEx and United Parcel to get permission from the post office. And of course, none of those permissions would be forthcoming under those hypotheticals. But only we are singled out for this. The committee sub, the lottery people came up here, despite being up every year, 9% last year. We're a threat in, it looks like, 2 counties. I'd like to see all the counties where we have our games and see what counties where the lottery is up over the previous year. Okay, let's see the whole story. We're not a threat to the lottery. Nobody seriously believes that. Even they don't believe it. They called us an existential threat. I had to go back to my philosophy classes at Xavier to re-explore existentialism, and I believe it means they think we're a threat. Anyway, their biggest complaint is we're not regulated. Okay, and we're not. There weren't any regulations in effect, but nevertheless, we comply with all the laws in all the counties where we exist. We pay occupational taxes in a lot of those counties, and we're good corporate citizens in a lot of those counties. We give donations to the Tornado Relief Fund in the counties in December, well in advance of the beginning of this session, or the introduction of House Bill 608. So they say we're not regulated. Well, the committee sub that Representative Banta has will take care of that. I'm unaware of too many businesses that come here and say, please regulate us, please license us, please tax us. Well, that's what the committee sub does. It doesn't run out a legitimate business in this state that has come in here and has invested in businesses all over this state, over 70 counties. It will regulate, it will tax, it will license. We'll have full accountability on how much is played, how much is given back to the winning players, how many games are at each location. All of that is in the committee sub. The net revenue, 15% tax, will go to the First Responders Professional Development Fund that is established in the committee sub. A most worthy cause, we believe, and we allow the Department of Revenue to run this whole enterprise. So there you have the regulation. That's the way we need to go, not 608, which is strictly, let's don't beat around the bush. It's a protectionism bill, okay? And a long time ago, I was where you were, okay? I sat in those chairs. I had the same stresses and pressure, and listened to thousands and thousands of presentations on bills. And 608 is the kind of bill, Representative Bratcher, that we used to fight, okay? It picks winners. It picks losers. It's not pro-business. It's not pro-small business. It's not pro-free enterprise system. It's not pro-freedom. And that's what we were about back then, and I know that you are here today. So we need the committee sub. It's the far better way to go, and that's what they're doing in Pennsylvania. They forgot to tell you that, the lottery. You know, they have such a devastating impact on the Pennsylvania lottery, supposedly. What's Pennsylvania done? They've introduced legislation to regulate the skill games, okay, and to tax them, just like this committee sub proposes. So I strongly urge you to not to pass 608 in its current form. It's got lots of constitutional issues. I don't want to compare my legal acumen with John Tilley, but I agree with him totally that there are serious constitutional issues with the way 608 is written. The far better way to go is to welcome this investment in Kentucky, to thank these people for coming into our state and investing in our state and not run them out of the state. Okay? Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Mr. Hellringer or the sponsor of the sub? No comment. Representative Gentry?
I think he has left, but I'm not sure who to direct this question to. But so, as I understand what we're doing here, we start out with House Bill 608 about potentially banning these operations. We discussed this in the interim through this committee, which we often do. It's a complex issue. Everybody already knows here. I've already said it twice. I'll say it a third time. I support gaming. I support the people making the choice whether to spend how to spend their discretional dollars. I support the businesses that provide options. What I don't support, and I've said this on and on, I'm a consistent guy, is the process here. This looks like now we're on we've added another layer of complexity to already a complex situation by hijacking 608 and putting another bill forward that regulates, legalizes, and taxes this industry, which I support. But I'm being asked now to vote on a bill at the last minute that's doing a lot that I don't think everybody has had a chance that might be harmed by regulating an industry to come in and say, hey, I might be harmed in this way. Hey, where are these tax revenues going to? If it is true that Keys money might be going down, we don't know that. If it is, then why can't some of this money in this new regulating go towards Keys money? Otherwise, now you're forcing us to make a decision between expanded gaming or education. That's not right. It's not right that we're passing legislation like this. I don't really support 608. And with this committee sub, now it's put me in a really tough situation. I don't have the information in front of me to make a logical decision. And I'm one of the leaders in the Democratic caucus on L&O, especially with gaming. I file gaming bills. My colleagues come to me for leadership and advice. And now I have to provide that leadership with limited information because nobody ever came to me and said anything about this. To me, that's a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor of the sub signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair. The noes have it. Motion fails. Thank you. Anything further before we vote? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Banta.
No.
Representative Bratcher.
No.
Representative Birch. Representative Flannery.
Pass. If I could explain my vote, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
My preference on this issue, if possible, would be to allow the declaratory judgment actions proceed. Thank you.
Representative Gentry.
Explain my vote.
Yes, sir.
Again, I apologize that I couldn't support the committee sub. My no vote on 608 is for legalizing, regulating, and taxing this industry. But we need to do it the right way. And it needs to take some time. So I would hope that my colleagues would help stop this bill on the floor and look to regulate this industry in the future in a logical way that doesn't harm as many people as it might. Thank you.
Representative Herron.
Pass.
Representative Huff.
Pass.
Representative Cook. Representative Massey.
Yes.
Representative McCoy.
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'm a yes today because I committed that I would be, but I think the folks that testified have raised a lot of things that we need to look into. Appreciate it.
Representative Meredith. Representative Miller.
For the reasons stated by Representative McCoy, I'm a yes today.
Representative Moser. Representative Palumbo.
Yes.
Representative Pratt.
Yes.
Representative Santoro. Representative Timoney. Representative Westrom.
I'm going to pass on this.
Chairman Koenig.
Yes. Motion passes. The same should pass on the House floor. Thank Representative Mosier. Would you like to make a vote on 608? You don't have to. It won't change the outcome.
It won't change the outcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and my apologies. I had to go present another bill. I will vote yes, but I do think that this initiative needs more discussion. I hate to miss the boat on improving our revenue situation in Kentucky. I don't like the idea of taking these away from our small businesses, but I do think that in order to move this forward, I'll be a yes and reserve my right on the floor to change my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. Having come to the end of the agenda,